Morning, Sarah. How's it going?
Hi, Jude. Really well. Lovely to see you again.
So, thanks so much for taking the time. For anyone who doesn't know, we both worked at Dyson, and I guess we'll get into that a little bit as we get through the discussion. I guess the jumping off point was I was wanting to talk to you about your very varied career in all sorts of different product design and indeed electrical engineering, and with a lens to sort of things like right of repair and how designers can essentially be more sustainable and sort of planet conscious, really. So I thought it'd be interesting if you could maybe give a little bit of a sort of potted history of course, from Dyson where you went next, as it's really quite varied.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Joined Dyson in the early days, and it was kind of not quite a startup, but I think I was the fourth woman engineer in a team of 250 engineers. Left there and went to a renewable energy startup, which was great because that gave me real experience of, well, a real breadth of experience and understanding not just about product development, but more about the kind of commercial aspects of product development being in a startup. I left there and went to Native, which is a consultancy that designed for some of the world's most premium brands. And then from there to a another startup, actually, so Scandinavian startup, where we it was a connected product. So that was really interesting, and sort of starting to understand a bit more about products and what they could bring to your life, the value they could bring that wasn't just associated with the piece of hardware. So
Mm.
really started getting fired up about connected products. And now I'm at Elvie, which is a femtech company designing products for women's health and well-being. So it's been kind of interesting. My career has sort of spanned the internet revolution. So products have gone from being pretty dumb pieces of hardware to sort of connected products and able to provide much more functionality and value to the user through a sort of emotional connection, and excited about the future of wearables and the impact that they will have on closing their health data gender gap. So unfortunately, not great for the environment though, as products have become more and more electronic, less dumb, so lots more e-waste.
No, and I think that we'll not jump the gun, but I really want to get back to the LV questions. But obviously, I think for the ease of things, we'll
Mm.
start chronologically. And I guess one of the things I reflected on when I looked back at my time at Dyson is they had a sort of philosophy of design, build, test, and retest and retest and retest, which effectively just meant things had a lot of screws in them because you were
Mm.
always taking them apart and putting them back together. Now, I
Yeah.
don't think it was necessarily drilled into me that this was good for the environment, but actually that sort of indoctrination, shall we say, on me meant I sort of tend to design things to be taken apart and switched out
Mm.
and iterated as a sort of default nature. I wondered, did you find that also sort of carried through as a red thread for you, or do you feel you've had to, change quite radically and even take a few steps up beyond that with your work?
Well, interesting that you mentioned about the using screws to sort of build products at Dyson. So one of my very first jobs in the very early 2000s was at Dyson, was in the reliability team. And there was a fault with one of the large sub-assemblies on one of the vacuum cleaners. And this specific assembly was glued together in production, and it
Mm,
was a very large assembly that meant that if there was a reliability issue with it, the service engineers couldn't repair it because it was
yeah.
glued together. And so the whole piece needed replacing. It was very, very costly to the company. So my role in that was to solve the issue and then re-engineer the assembly method so that it could be screwed together and repaired if needed, which was easier said than done because it was actually designed with glue channels in for a gluing robot, and there really wasn't much space to fit screws in and it still seal. But I think that the no glue in production rule came as a result of this, and it was like a very expensive lesson for the company. So I think, as you say, we kind of didn't really appreciate the environmental benefits of that at the time. But I think initially it was from more of a financial concern due to this reliability issue. But yeah, definitely more screws, less glue is now, one of the kind of designs for disassembly mantras.
Absolutely. And certainly sort of when you speak to anyone who works at recycling management companies and sort of material reclamation, yeah, they dread things excuse me, that don't have an easy way to sort of be taken apart. So for example, I was just looking at a cordless toothbrush this morning and thinking, yeah, this is tricky, isn't it? It doesn't come apart easily, and rightly so, because it needs to be sealed. I guess maybe this is a good way to sort of, as it were, jump to the origins of this project, which was me trying to replace the battery of these headphones. And realizing it, even as a sort of chartered engineer like yourself, it's easier said than done to do that. And I thought maybe this was a nice sort of place to jump into Native and essentially their sort of methodologies, because they were working with a whole range of clients. I'm sure you can't talk about the Bowers and Wilkins P5 in too much detail, but I'd love to hear just any little sort of stories and anecdotes of obviously just trying to design for better disassembly through that.
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, yeah. So Bowers and Wilkins had a long-standing relationship with Native, so we did work on many of the products. And Bowers, they really design for quality. They are a premium brand, and they're very proud of the serviceability of their products. So speakers were designed so that owners could replace the delicate diamond tweeters. So you can buy replacement parts, and they are disassemblable and reassemblable. And then the P5s, so they were just bringing out the wireless ones just as I left Native, but the cabled ones previously, the came with a replacement cable, and the cable wear around the flange was the most unreliable part of that whole product. So they actually, if you removed the ear cup behind, there was like a little channel, and you could replace the cable. So they were designed to be as user serviceable as they could be, but you couldn't really disassemble the whole ear cup. They have to strike a balance between kind of repairability and users invalidating warranties. So I know that they were designed so that, if they had been disassembled, it would be obvious.
Yeah. And certainly, of course, the internet being what it is, I've seen tear down videos, and it does have that really nice little channel, and it looks very, should we say, user friendly to someone who's reasonably technically competent, of course. And I guess that's maybe the interesting thing is around the sort of the business models of course, not to sort of, it's hard to sound unbiased, but I guess one of the good things about Dyson and the 5-year guarantees was you were encouraged to sort of basically replace anything that just wore out through natural wear and tear, or maybe you just did something stupid and you sort of dropped it down the stairs, or you did something that broke apart. It could be exchanged, but it's worth acknowledging that really only was viable as quite a premium product. I don't think you could buy a cheap sort of £60 vacuum cleaner and expect it to last 5 years, for example, with all the parts on the house. I guess with that in mind, what do you think are going to be some of the front runners in essentially good repairability? What is it, always just going to be the premium brands, or do you think there's different ways to attack it?
Well, I mean, the biggest way to reduce the environmental impact of a product is to design it to be reliable. If that product doesn't need to be made again, then that reduces the environmental impact. So yeah, definitely repairability and serviceability is essential. I don't think it has to be the preserve of the premium brands, though, in terms of repairability or serviceability. So you can still have a a cheap product, that the internal components are accessible. What the thing that will be limited to the premium brands will be, or not the premium brands, but a more expensive product. Obviously, if you have a higher quality battery with like longer life, more less degradation in its recharge ability, etc., that does cost. So there will be a trade-off between how long a product is actually has a serviceable life and the ability to service it.
Well, actually, maybe that's a perfect jump into your work at a startup, Glue. For anyone who doesn't know, these are basically smart door locks. I won't steal any of your thunder, Sarah, but it's fair to assume that a door lock is obviously supposed to be functioning longer than a fashion cycle of 2 to 3 years, which is about how long a lithium battery generally lasts. So I'm guessing you had to circumnavigate that problem, as you wouldn't want people locked out after 2 to 3 years of buying the product.
Yeah, that's a great point. The your expectation around how long your product should last definitely probably aligns with how easy it is to replace the product, or and a smart door lock isn't something that you would necessarily want to replace frequently. So our products were actually very easy to assemble, just like to say, but we did have user replaceable alkaline batteries. But unfortunately, obviously, user replaceable means disposable with alkaline batteries. The problem we had with rechargeable batteries was the kind of the power gradient was really inconsistent, and actually it kind of messed with the firmware and the user experience. So we had firmware set up so that at certain battery levels the lock would behave in certain ways, and that gradient needed to be really consistent, which was what we got from alkaline batteries. So rechargeables definitely didn't give us that. So eventually, with our third product, we moved to lithium batteries, so that we could get that predictability in terms of user experience, and the longevity, the power density of the lithium battery. However, as we all know, lithium, it hasn't necessarily got great credentials either. So
no, and I guess the takeaway from that is it is that thing of, you can't always predict and anticipate everything within the user experience. And as you said, sort of building in tolerances even in the electronic specification, that meant you had a little bit of overhead to keep you in the power sort of comfort zone, should we say, of the electronics. I think those are really solid takeaways for designers looking at these things, as sometimes there is a tendency to look at a data sheet and go, good stuff, that'll do.
Exactly. And you really need, with a smart lock, you need predictable behavior. What you don't want is to be able to lock your door with the battery level at a certain level, but actually it's declined just that much that when you come home you can't unlock your door.
And I hadn't thought of it actually, but I guess temperature was a big factor, because the door was very much exposed to the elements.
Well,
so
the lock was on the inside.
Night, the
lock was on the inside, but your door is still it's
close
still kind
to
of
the cold.
It's the segue to the outside, so your door will be colder. But so we needed to make sure that when your battery reached a certain level, you could only ever unlock using the smart lock, because you could use it manually as well, but you couldn't lock using the smart lock, because there was potential at that cusp that you could lock yourself out. So if you couldn't lock if the battery had reached a level where you couldn't lock, that was like the final warning to the user that the battery is now, at that kind of past that level.
No, I think that's
you've
such
got
a
notifications and things, but so having predictable behavior for a product experience is key with the batteries.
Well, I guess maybe on that element of unpredictable behavior, maybe that's a nice tie into to Elvie. And again, please give a little bit of a sort of background into the pelvic floor trainer, which of course is quite a sealed device for good reason. But also the breast pumps, I won't steal your thunder, but those have some, should we say, unexpected, albeit well-intentioned end of life complications, shall we say. So what are your thoughts on those of unexpected user interactions?
So, well, hopefully you're when you say unpredictable, you're not talking about, well, you're not talking about our product user experience, but yeah,
No,
just for
not at all.
anybody,
Well,
yeah,
okay, just to be clear, it was the
it's
fact they do a
fine.
fierce
It's
trade on eBay. So the breast pumps, which maybe
so
wasn't in the plan.
no, so I'll just, for those who aren't aware of Elvie or what our products are. So
Indeed.
our products are designed for women's health and well-being. We aim to meet previously unmet user needs. So and often breaking taboos whilst we do it. So if anyone's seen any of our marketing materials, we've done some pretty crazy stunts.
Yeah, that's in the
To
cow
get,
video, which was terrific.
yeah, to get these women's health issues sort of out into the public conversation. So our pelvic floor trainer, which is designed to help women take control of their pelvic floor and ensure that leaks don't happen, is a silicone product, completely sealed for hygiene. And I wouldn't call it a single-use product, but it's definitely a single-user product. And there isn't a large second-hand market for these, as you can expect. I mean, they're quite intimate devices. So our wearable breast pumps, however, are designed to be completely discreet and silent and be worn inside the user's bra, so that you can pump milk for feeding your baby. And, you know, you have the choices whether you return to work and still able to feed your baby breast milk, which is really important in the States. They have very, very short maternity leave. So I think the average woman in the States takes 6 weeks maternity leave before returning to work. So, you know, the product is very, very valuable to women there. However, the product contains, you know, bodily fluids. Breast milk is a bodily fluid. Babies need to have in their first 6 months, they must have very, very closely controlled sort of hygiene around their milk, etc. So our products, I hear, sell very well on eBay. There is a thriving second-hand, third-hand, and probably fourth-hand market, but the products are designed for single users at the moment because of the hygiene factors. The average, I would say, the average breastfeeding journey for mums is around 6 months, though, and our products come with a 2-year warranty. And then, of course, with the batteries, etc., we do design that with a big all the components we design with a big safety factor in the for the reliability in the warranty period. So when you think that the user will probably, a single user will only use that product for 6 months, they might keep it and reuse it for, you know, second, third, fourth children, and they are completely able to do that. The product is designed for that. But a lot of users, yeah, will sell that product on. So I would say that our products are designed, yeah, so for like maybe 4 uses on average. But yeah, it's a balance, because we kind of, for the lifetime of the product of a 2-year warranty, which is very standard, we're sort of almost over engineering for the use of a single consumer. So something, you know, it is definitely something we should consider in the future, is how to make that product a multi-user device. So how can we design that product so that it is completely hygienic for the circular economy?
Yeah, and I think these are really good questions for any company. And I just to be clear, for anyone just dropping in on this call, I've interviewed a bunch of designers and people in the industry, and no one, should we say, has created a perfect playbook. It seems like it's always something which has to be deeply internalized by the company's design team and indeed leadership team, and then carried forward with quite a bit of vision and steadfastness, really. As certainly in the early days, there are not huge incentives for taking, should we say, this longer, albeit more responsible route. So yeah, I think it's really commendable that you're speaking with us today about this and just being candid about some of the trials and tribulations of getting these things right. I guess maybe one of the things that we did discuss a little bit in a previous call was really this idea about talking about sort of Fairphone, which had also made headphones, the Fairbud XLs, and how you could pop out this little battery. And I think when I was talking to you, I sort of said, even my cordless drill has a very standard battery in it, albeit lithium. And I wondered, what were your reflections on why it wasn't as easy that designers could just use a standardized range of lithium batteries, which would mean that the consumer could then later change them out themselves without having to go through the anxiety of, is this a bad lithium battery and it might burst into flames? I guess maybe to sort of focus the question, do you think Duracell would ever be a purveyor of good quality approved lithium batteries so that users can change things out? Is that getting too idealistic, or do you think that's needed?
No, I mean, that's a great suggestion. And I think standardized components for the reduction of e-waste is where the industry needs to go. When you look at Apple's Lightning charger and then having to move towards the USB-C, etc., that not having to throw away your battery charger every time you upgrade a product, or having universal chargers so you can have one charger and it works for all products, that is great. So I'm all in favor of the standardization of power supplies, batteries, etc. I think where the problem will come is in the actual packaging. When I say packaging, I'm meaning the product how you package those components, so the product architecture. So in order to make products lightweight, small, discreet, user friendly, no matter what, whatever their purpose is, it's not always easy to package it so that the battery is accessible sort of at the outer edges of that product. So there has to be a balance between accessible batteries and kind of reliable reassembly, I guess, of those components. If the batteries are so buried in the product, you have to start removing PCBs and connectors, etc., to access them. It doesn't matter how standard the batteries are. If you put your product back together and it's the functions degraded, that's definitely not a great user experience, and you could end up throwing the whole product away.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's fair to say that there is indeed, it would be fun to do a sort of spectrum of the repairability, which of course is what iFixit does. But sort of to go beyond just sort of tech devices into sort of household things as well. I guess one of the sort of things I've realized when going through this journey and writing this blog up is that I've usually only ever turned to the internet and typed in how to repair ... product, or how to replace battery in ... product. And it occurred to me that actually I should type in how repairable is X product before I buy it. I was wondering, do you think this will be a shift, that people will just, as it were, when they're in a tiebreaker, as I've said, between Bose and Sony is infinitely easier for the like-for-like headphones to take apart than Bose? And I wouldn't have thought of that, because Bose I would have considered to be the OG of noise cancelling headphones, and indeed is one of the best brands in its class. So I was quite shocked at how hard it was. And I wondered, do you think this will be I don't want to say a designer's quiet rebellion, but you know what I mean? There's something subversive about designing it, knowing that you can't say on the box, this is a gem to repair, but you know it
Mm.
is. Do you think it
Mm.
will be a sort of a stealth approach for designers?
Uh, I mean, that would be great if it is. And I think as designers, we are kind of natural problem solvers, troubleshooters, you know, tinkerers. When we spoke previously, I was telling you how I had taken a pump apart recently that had reached the end of its life and managed to replace the motor brushes with one from a drill to get some extra life out of the product.
Wow.
I think what I think the one of the things that we would have to do is it's not just designers. I think there needs to be almost a cultural shift in people's right to repair and their ability to repair. So I think most consumers, particularly in the Western world, have a kind of a view that products are now disposable. I mean, if you look back, you know, 40 years ago, most households would probably attempt to repair their own cars. I mean, yeah, like 35 years ago, drove a Land Rover, and it was like a big Meccano kit. Everything on it was repairable. And as the car industry has moved to sort of much less repairable cars, it's almost sort of signaled that cultural shift in repairability and people's, and when I say repairability, I mean repair ability. People feel less able to repair products and less inclined. So it not only does it need to come from us as designers, but I think it also needs a cultural shift that is our right to be able to repair it, and we should be able to repair it.
I think that's such a great point, and maybe just a sort of other closing question. I think we've given a lot of emphasis to, you know, what designers should be doing, but I think this is part of the reasons I was really excited to speak to you, not just because you're at Elvie, which is known for its marketing, but actually, you know, your entire career has been hand in glove with good design, but also articulating it
Oh,
through
thank you.
innovative, progressive brands. So I was wondering, you know, what advice would you have for not just designers but also the entire team, the people driving forward the vision of new product, either iteration or entirely new game changers to start with?
Mhm. Well, the circular economy is coming. So we have to, you know, companies need to design their products so that they are repairable. The way people own products is changing. So products need to be to have a longer life, and you know, companies must get behind that. And that means repairability as well. So I would say start thinking about that now. Every new product you design and develop, think about it from the get-go, because I mean legislation is changing as well. 2027, you know, is a big year for
Big
a change
watershed.
in legislation. So, you know, you cannot kind of retrospectively make your product more repairable or work out how your batteries are going to be accessible. So start, and product development takes time. So start thinking about it now.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for your time, Sarah. That was a great closer, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of a busy schedule to have a chat today. So thanks
You're
again.
welcome. Great to see you, Jude, and thanks for thinking of me.
It's a pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.